source for crypto, AI gaming, and today it's going to be a DePIN conversation with the crew from XYO and our panelists here. But as always, I like to start with Buzz and see what's on his mind. Buzz, it's good to be here with you again today. What are you thinking about today? How are you?
Hey, I'm doing good. It's always in a good mood when the market's a little bit more green. I think I saw a tweet from I think it was Ansem a few days ago where it said this is the point in the cycle, and the cycle meaning getting towards the end of the 4-year cycle thesis, when people are looking to sell the next pump rather than talk about where we could go to infinity with Bitcoin and all these coins. And I find that when KOLs start getting very bearish like that, it can make my mood a little bearish and think like, oh gosh, like, am I missing the boat here? But it is nice to see the market moving up here and some positivity across the market.
Yep, I'll take anything that gives a little bit of juice to the timeline. I've been enjoying it, and I know Bradley probably has too. Bradley, I appreciate you taking the time to be here. How are you?
Absolutely. I'm doing great. Thank you for so much for having me on. Yeah, the markets are certainly in the green. It's been a long year, guys. But it seems like the Solana rotation is taking place. I know a lot of these DePIN projects are built on Solana. So excited to see that capital rotation and the catalyst coming up in Q4. I think could be good to see. We could have some fun here.
Would be interesting. Everybody's got strong opinions on Q4. I'd like to hear yours when we get around to it, Bradley. Kevin, how are you doing, sir? Thank you for making the time to be here.
Cheers. It's great to be here. Yeah, and very good to be in a positive mood with the latest move. So happy to be here.
I appreciate you taking the time out of your day. And Risha is here as well. How are you doing? Oh, I don't have any sound on that mic. Can you guys hear anything?
No, she's either muted or we can't hear her.
Might need to reconnect or figure out that mic configurement on the back end there, Risha. We'll circle back around in just a second. And David, you can pick up there for me. How are you doing today, man?
I'm very good, thank you. Yeah, we're we just pushed live with a new client, Smart Gold, tokenizing gold on the blockchain as part of IRAs in the US. So it's been a big week for us, but more importantly, I think for the markets generally, we're over that summer lull, and I think we're going to now start to see some really exciting things starting to be announced across the whole industry, and I'm pumped for it.
Not a bad day to be you with gold ripping an ATH yesterday, right? So that's
good timing. I know exactly. I couldn't help but retweet that when it did.
Being quite modest, but that's a whole separate spaces. But thank you, David, for being here, and Marcus Levin from XYO. How are you doing, sir? Thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, I think it's awesome to be here, and on this day, where the markets are green, and I think we start alt season today. I hope there's a lot coming up in Q4, as you guys said. Like a lot on the regulatory side in the US. The Fed rate cuts, and then the whole market setup is just awesome. So I'm very excited for Q4.
Yeah, a bunch of different things people are holding their breath for, waiting for one thing to drop or the other. We're going to keep our eye on it, and I know Graham Penrose is going to keep close eye on it. GP, how are you, sir?
I'm very well indeed, sir. Thanks for inviting me to the show again. Yeah, a big week in DeSci. We're talking about DePIN. I bought some base zero licenses in some of the DePIN initiatives pre-Christmas. Unfortunately, some of them haven't come online. But yeah, huge week in DeSci. Huge week for Solana DeSci, and for Solana Gaming. I'm after making an absolute killing on SpineDAO token. For those of you who don't know, full disclosure, I'm a paid advisor to the board, but SpineDAO are in the area of, they are recognized as the leading surgeons in corrective surgery for scoliosis and similar really debilitating spinal ailments. And I was hoping to be able to make an announcement on this show, but I can't. The press release is going out over Bader Baker and PR Newswire in about an hour. So yeah, I think the market looks good. I'm bullish on Solana. I've been in the adventure with Solana from day one. I'm not so bullish on ETH, I gotta say, for a whole bunch of reasons. And Bitcoin, well, I was never a big fan anyway. So Solana all the way for me. So like, just in case anybody didn't hear me the first 6 times I said that.
Yeah, I'm always here for a good conversation. It feels like we haven't had as many of those lately, so I appreciate you being here, Graham, for that. And Adam McBride in the top left corner, sir. What's up? How are you?
Man, how can you not be bullish on Solana? Like I'm just, this is where the builders are. We're building on Solana. I'm not so bearish as Graham on ETH, being that it's kind of the Wall Street cycle and Wall Street money coming in. But for actual building, I think it's really all happening on Solana. So very, very good time to be on Solana, I think.
Yep, we'll have to circle back around and see how that works. I know that with the regulatory stuff, everybody's had their eyes on Bitcoin. There's been more conversations about that, but Solana hasn't gone away, man. And there's still a lot of liquidity over there, so it'd be silly to sleep on it. But I do think that people are waiting for something to happen. I want to ask you guys a question because I got a DePIN panel here today, and I don't want to get caught up in a bunch of Bitcoin stuff. I've heard the word data economy so much in the last 3 months, and I need you guys to clarify that for me. I'm playing the ignorant person on the panel because I know somebody listening is going to want this clarification too. Can somebody tell me why they keep telling me there's an economy for my data? Because people keep telling me about a data economy. They keep telling me that I'm going to be able to sell my data, or they tell me somebody else is selling my data, but I know I'm not making the money on my data yet. And I want to know what a data economy really means from each of you. And let's go around the room. Bradley, I'll start with you, and then whoever wants to follow up with his thoughts, we'll go around that order.
Sure. Look, I think our data has been valuable for a long time. Just the centralized entities have been the ones that have monetized it. But I think now more than ever, when you look at the emergence of AI, you need data to train the models. And that is one thing that DePIN is doing a really good job of, is allowing people to monetize their own data. I'll give you a couple of quick examples. With the emergence of autonomous vehicles, they need data to train their models, and they're very reliant on AI. There's 2 projects in particular, HiveMapper and Rover is a newer project as well, where in your day-to-day drives, you can collect data, and that data is then used on the back end with your edge processing by these different companies. HiveMapper is, for example, having their data purchased by Volkswagen to train their self-driving vehicle models. And you can also build businesses off of this. I got involved in HiveMapper in the early days. I set up a fleet of about 100 Uber and Lyft drivers across the U.S. that I place cameras with. They collect data all day. I split the earnings with them. And Rover's doing something similar with LiDAR. And I think they have a very bright future ahead as well. So I think we're entering a new age of being able to monetize your own data, taking the power back from the centralized entities. And with the emergence of AI, I think there's a very bright future there.
I got a question for you on that, Bradley, and it has to do with market sizing. How much would you estimate, if you were to do like a market sizing problem, of what one individual's data is worth? And then the reason I ask that is because I've always struggled with DePIN to see how big the market size is for an individual person. Like how much is one person's data worth?
It's a good question. It really depends on the data set and the project, because for a project like HiveMapper, they've mapped 35% of the world's roads so far. For them, if they could get 1 million contributors, the better. But that means you're also splitting up that pie. But you have to look at the total addressable market for that data set. There are other projects where they don't necessarily need as much data collection to move the needle. So I think it's very dependent on the projects. In many cases, the way I look at it is, okay, what's the total addressable market? What's the barrier to entry, the cost to get in? And then, what does that ROI look like? So I think, it's difficult to answer because it's very project dependent. But to me, the main thing is, okay, is there a total addressable market? And is there a differentiator against the other competition? Or are you collecting a new data set altogether that hasn't existed? But I think that's the main thing I look at.
Well, one important thing that you just said there is it's project by project basis. So it's not necessarily for the end user a one-time payout for their data. They can sell it multiple times, right? And they can continue monetizing on it for different use cases. GP, I saw you nodding your head a little bit. Did you have an opinion on that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's one of the core elements of our open code mission ecosystem. We've got data brokerages directly from our Verum sphere, cutting out the current data brokerages with the people in enterprises who want to buy the data. And how do you get monetized? Well, as a member of our ecosystem, when you opt in to allow your data to be sold, you get you get paid for it pro rata on the amount of data in the data set that was yours. So it's a unique approach because we don't let businesses into our ecosystem. We expose SDKs and APIs so that Gucci can expose their Gucci bags and whatnot, and an exchange of value can take place within our ecosystem. But they don't get to get the breadcrumbs or drop the user or data agents or the tracking cookies on the person that's just bought. But all that analytics rolls up behind our ecosystem members' blockchain cataloged data, which is immutable, and gets stored in the Verum sphere, which is Latin for truth sphere, is traceable in perpetuity, and therefore it completely cuts out disinfo, misinfo, and made up synthetic data. And the person buying the data, the organizations, can trace right back to the sensory device that generated the data. So it's not just data through behavior on Web 2 e-commerce transactions, it's geospatial data as they move around their environment. It is signals data from the environment in which they occupy. So the number of vectors and siloed data sets that one person produces, which can be sliced and diced and sold through different mechanisms to different types of businesses, is immense. We can also do what people are really trying hard to do and not succeeding, which is in the whole area of fMRI, FNIRS, and EEG for thought inferencing. If you look at Brain Alive, for example, they've designed a very pretty ergonomic headset, but people still have to wear it. And the data sets are too small, so the models aren't giving the type of output they need. However, when we have 30 million in our ecosystem, we'll have 30 million people who, for 1 hour a week for our ACTA token, will wear it. And we will therefore have 30 million hours a week of new EEG, FNIRS, fMRI data to sell to whoever wants to buy it. We will take a 1% transaction fee and the rest goes to the users. And that goes across the board, everything they do, including their Fitbit data and everything else. So this is it's called OCM Bazaar, BAZAAR, as per the Bazaar being the trading marketplace in the Arabic world. And that is where we're mostly focused right now in testing this, as well as our autonomous broadcasting.
When you talk about people not knowing all the data streams they produce, that's actually pretty interesting, because I don't think people would be aware just generally of all the different places you could touch. Marcus, when you hear GP's comment about people not knowing how many different data sets they produce, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, first to what Bradley said, is like the market is going to be enormous. You know, as you guys have seen probably from the World Economic Forum, they said, it's going to be, DePIN is going to be a $3.5 trillion market by 2028. Right, that's in 3 years. We had 100 billion by now, so the overall market is going to be enormous, and data is obviously a huge part of it. It's going to be in the hundreds of millions, probably high hundreds of millions, and data is endless. It depends on the use cases you have. Like we at XYO, we started data collection 7 years ago with the original DePIN, and we have more than 10 million nodes already and growing really fast. We have more than $9 million in revenue. We have a lot of different partners in the Web 2 and Web 3 space, and what you can do with that is really, really mind blowing. Our nodes are so excited. We have a mobile app. They use the app more than 3 hours a day in the foreground. That's more usage than all social media apps get combined. And that is because they get something in return. It's the value you receive for your data, which is so important. And that's where DePIN is, I think, really transformative to blockchain, where it allows you really to participate in something. You get passive income, or your asset earns you some return, and you get some freedom, and you become part of a community, and so on. And so I'm super excited about the growth there. And then to what GP said, yes, a lot of data is very valuable. So we started with geolocation and proof of location, where we provided certainty around location, and today we collect and validate any data really, and then connect it with Web2 and Web3 companies, and it's when we are just at the beginning of that. I think the AI revolution will make data so much more needed and interesting. If you can prove and make sure that data doesn't hallucinate, for example, or that AI doesn't hallucinate, right? We can prove that, for example, with blockchain. And so we launched XYO Layer 1 blockchain, for example, later this month. We're very excited about that. And that is going to be all for the data economy you mentioned.
So let me ask you, David, a theme I've heard from a couple of people is that there is such a thing as premium data, because we're going to hear more and more about people selling data, and there's data available. But there might be maybe premium data or premium users. Do you think that's true, that there might be people or individuals who are identified as maybe their data sets that they provide being more valuable, or that it would be more incentivized for certain users in some way?
I definitely think there will be. And to follow on from Bradley's one about new data sets and use cases, I think I could almost flip this around to ask the question, where does DePIN and AI provide real value for the rest of the crypto sector? And if we look at the tokenization of real world assets, which I always bang on about because we're doing it, but if you look at that for a moment, what is that actually going to produce? An incredibly rich data set on the blockchains across many chains. And that can be utilized and trained with a combination of AI and DePIN networks. And it's going to provide a whole level of intelligence that can be used for anything from predictive of things like the gold market spikes that happened in 2022. It cost traders over $10 billion. Be able to forward predict that and add resilience would be an incredibly valuable thing for the efficiency of markets. Another one is things like fraud detection too. Over time, you're going to be able to see this kind of thing too. But more directly to your question on premium data, if you look at what's going to be of maximal value, certain traders are just going to be relatively low volume, low value. They're just going to be like me, basically. And then there are others who represent either at the institutional level, or they're going to be much higher grade, much higher volume. They are probably going to naturally, therefore, have more value directly when it comes to anything like RWA. But outside of that, I think you also have to look at the types of data that could be produced too, where maybe it's also more indicative of the direction of markets and things like that too. Certain things will move markets more meaningfully, and again, if, for example, you were an influencer in some form, what you do being watched on chain is of way more value than an ordinary trader, even though the trades could be very similar. People could see that type of thing as a signal. So there's a lot of nuance in all of this, but for me, above all else, the potential to marry DePIN for the distributed hardware and data infrastructure, AI to handle that intelligence side, and this raw data that's going to come from tokenization of real world assets is a really, really powerful thing. And I can see many, many use cases where this is going to add a huge amount of value in future services that right now as an industry, we're not even touching right now.
So one of the examples I thought of, somebody mentioned earlier that Volkswagen was purchasing data. I could see professional drivers being a more valuable data set for car companies. You mentioned Hive Mapper, right? You would rather have data from someone that drives every day, all the time in the place that you want, rather than someone who's just mapping areas you don't care about. Kayvon, what do you think about the potential for industries individually to have their own like key data providers?
Yeah. I mean, the potential for industries is prediction. So they want to model us, and they want to predict what we do in the next 10 seconds. That's ultimately the goal. And I think at the age of agents that's emerging, a new type of data would be more valuable, and it's actions. Like, what do you do with your body? How do you touch things? How do you talk to people? How do you manipulate the environment around you? And we are seeing this in specific verticals, like, for example, for programming. If you've heard of something like called vibe coding, it's not so much that this AIs that now can program know how the program is before them programmed. they did that in a second, right? So they just consumed all the programming knowledge and spit it out in a second. It's so much more about how do you implement that programming knowledge in a business setting, right? Like I can produce as an agentic model, I can produce 10 books worth of code in 10 seconds, but would that benefit anyone, or would everyone just say, oh, AI slop, I don't want this, why does it have 10 fingers instead of 5, and so on. So I think this new type of IP that we have as humans is not so much the past of us, because our past is already encapsulated in things like ChatGPT and other foundation models. We're no single one of us is now smarter than like a language model. But what the edge that we have over these AI models is we have hands and we have mouth and we can move in the real world, and they still can't. Not for long though, so we need to get prepared for that eventuality as well.
And just the idea that they want to predict what you're doing from a marketing perspective is 100% true. If you knew what people's desires were going to be, you could put everything in front of them right when they needed it and take advantage of all those things. Risha, we'll check the microphone and make sure you're back and good this time. What do you think about that, being able to directly target those users based on predictive needs?
I think this is really good. I think angle to talk about, because one of the inputs that we are using on our platform is voice interaction and conversational AI to connect investors with founders. And what we want to really tap into is the data that we are collecting at that level. And one of the things that I realized on the data side is there's a lot of transactional information that we get on chain and off chain especially, and we're trying to kind of integrate some of the social sentiments inputs from the crypto markets to kind of analyze that kind of data and make it intelligent, or probably create an intelligence layer. And that's something that I think is really useful for predicting a wallet movement, I would say, especially when it comes to moving large amounts of money from one wallet to the other. So these sort of social sentiments data, it helps us to kind of predict the signals or predict the future of a token, how it's going to move. So this is something that I've been working quite extensively on, and integrating or trying to integrate the off-chain social sentiments in our platform. So I think that's something really interesting that is probably making more this DePIN thing, which we used to think that it is just earning passive income on your devices, but I think it is becoming more foundational in kind of as a technology, what we kind of can think of, that there's so much of physical infrastructure. How do we move that from off-chain to on-chain? And that's where I think each one of us is going to play different roles.
Solid way of looking at it. I wonder what role, other than hosting the spaces, I'm going to end up, because I feel like sometimes I'm on the outside looking in. Adam, do you ever feel like when you get these conversations, because like Graham bringing up DeSci has got me thinking about all the things I know I'm sleeping on too.
Well, I mean, for me, it's like my brain goes to, and maybe this is a question for Graham, how are you looking at it for individuals that want to give their data or something? How are you looking at it from an aspect of you want data? How do you actually find these people and get these people to come into your ecosystem? You know, we all think of like the phone. Okay, Apple has these people, they can kind of direct it, right? This seems like a big player game, like Google and Apple and all these guys basically own this data now. How are you looking at the future of actually getting individuals to even know it exists, that they can kind of access these tools?
I think that is just, I couldn't have paid you to ask a better question. You see, everybody's trying to adopt the same old model that's worked for 20 years. 20 years of egregiously unregulated data moats, walled gardens, centralized identity and federated identity, dominated by abuse of power, surveillance capitalism, unauthorized monetization. The reason gold or data has become the most valuable commodity above gold or oil in the last 18 months is this silent invisible market between vested interests that happens in the background that nobody knows about. The bursts of data that go from your cell phone when it's been off for 12 hours, that is, even though your phone has been off, it is still gathering environmental and spatial data that it bursts on up into Google or whoever it is that goes on to use it. So how do you get people to do that? You don't. This is the essential imperative of where everybody is missing the point with adoption of whether it's Web 3 or whether it's Web 5. But I just prefer to call it a self-sovereign ecosystem where people don't need to know anything about technology, don't need to know how to get fiat into a decentralized or centralized crypto exchange, then figure out how to convert it into a crypto using some wallet extension, and then somehow navigate themselves around discords and do fundamental analysis. Never mind, these people who claim you can do technical analysis on legacy of 6 months of trading. I mean, the nonsensical horse S asterisk asterisk T that I hear on a daily on these spaces where people are talking about technical analysis of crypto charts that have 6 months lifespan. I mean, you can't even get up on stage and disagree.
What are you talking about? 6 months? People are doing TAs on meme coins that are 6 hours old. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, at the end of the day, if you want to be a day trader on this stuff, you're playing the 15-second candle, just like I do every now and again to amuse myself. And I have a market set order as it does a bump, and I make a 2x, and then I leave the screen, and I never think about that coin ever again if I live to be 1,000 years old. So the answer to your question is this: the business model that Open Code Media adopts isn't going up against big tech on the same set of rules, because our business model is 180-degree opposite to theirs. That is, it puts the control of data in the hands of the user, even if the user doesn't know what the data is, what it means, how many data points are collected on them. And then through their participation in the ecosystem, just like those random airdrops that arrive in your Solflare or your MetaMask or your Phantom wallet, they get dropped $2,000 at the end of the month, because all of that stuff that they don't know is being given away for free. And that's why we got hundreds of $billion companies and one winner takes all Web 2 type stuff going on. Is not going to happen in this next year.
I'm trying to figure out if my data is going to be worth more than Pulse's. That's what
most definitely, bro. Most definitely.
That depends on whether it's anonymized or not, I would say. You can read between the lines on that. But Adam, the bottom line is that the answer to the question is very simple. They depend on foundational vendor lock-in. When you offer them an appliance that runs native on any operating system, but uses the intersection of machine learning, blockchain, and self-sovereign identity with a data protocol that has traceability in the form of ours, which is acquired type immutable, acquired type mutable, created type immutable, and created type mutable. And when you have a sensory device ecosystem where registration means that in perpetuity, it is traceable right the way back to its source. You can never, and in real time, you will have devices that when Fox News puts up a Democrat politician in an out of context quote, a red dot appears on the TV screen on your phone and says, hey, this is an excerpt from a piece of data that exists here. Have a look and see actually the context of what was said.
Oh, I think we might have lost you there, Graham.
Yeah, he's frozen for me.
Yeah. Kayvon, I see you nodding your head a little bit. Did you have a comment on that?
Well, I do. Well, and I have a general comment of the Web3 and Web5 and Web Infinity, as GP mentioned. That is, we can either do one of the two things. We can either stand here as the alternative industry, essentially bitch about it and say, "Oh, they're stealing us. I'm so valuable. Please, someone buy me, pay me for my worth." And I've done my part for this. So in Functionland, we built one of the actual physical devices that replaces the server. So I've ridden that ride of trying to bring like physical sovereign tech to homes, to users. But then at the end of the day, humans are very like driven by utility, and that's smart. Like I've tried to put something on their desk that adds a few inconveniences, like I need to plug this, but then I get free storage, I get free cloud, whatever. No, I'm gonna keep just continuing paying $10 a month to Google because I value my convenience. So my point is, for crypto in general, in Solana, in ETH, in every ecosystem, the main thing moving us forward from here is putting something new on the table. What's the next ChatGPT moment that's crypto initiated, as opposed to alternative to ChatGPT, alternative to Google Photos, like what Functionland did, right? So yeah, my point is we need to stop bitching about it and put something new on the table.
Well, I think like
I just want to add one more thing here to, sorry, Adam, to just follow up to add to Kevin. I think one of the things that we are all driven by is it generating yield, or you can earn through whatever you're doing. So along with the utility of whatever your data can do in the DePIN ecosystem, if we are able to kind of create dApps that are easy to download, that are probably very easy to use, and people kind of have this shift in their mind that it is my own information that ChatGPT is training people on. So on the reverse, Web3 actually gives me money or yield for sharing the data that is private to me, or sharing the data that I'm using or I'm contributing. So I think that's another motivation for people to get into DePIN more faster.
I would just layer on there that, I mean, it may seem like hard to do or difficult, and it is, but a lot of these things that kind of we've talked about for multiple cycles, and we've been talking about this ownership of personal data literally from the start of blockchains, right? But if you see too, like we were talking about, stocks on chain since the start of blockchains. I mean, we've been talking about that. We've talking about prediction markets forever. We've run like 3 prediction market cycles already, but it finally feels like things are aligning now, where the tech is here, wallet infrastructure is here, all these parts are coming together, that maybe it's the time. It's just a matter of somebody putting it together that it makes sense for people to the point being said.
Do you think that there's a barrier in the minds of consumers to actually get them directly involved in using DePIN products? The reason I asked the market sizing question towards the top of the call was that there's no better carrot than telling yourself, hey, if you do this, you can make $100 a month. And I find that when it's difficult to forecast what somebody might make, it might be difficult to onboard them. So just wondering if anyone has an idea on the panel of as to what we're going to have to do to bring consumers to start using this more.
I think you need to make it simple. I mean, that's one of the things about DePIN that's so nice, is it's real world use cases that make sense to people. Like, in recruiting, and to your point earlier, like, yeah, you get the whole point of the DePIN really is the more value you bring to the network, the higher value data set you bring, the more tokens you get rewarded. It's how the tokenomics are generally structured, how they should be structured. But when I would recruit Uber and Lyft drivers into my fleet, I didn't even bring up crypto on the front end. I said, look, have you ever used Google Maps? They're outdated in many cases. And they're like, yeah, for sure. And I said, well, there's a new company you can participate with, and you can actually put a dash cam up, collect street level imagery. It's creating the freshest map that exists in the world today. And that resonates with them. And then I bring up crypto way later in the conversation after they understand the use case. So I think we need to make it very easy for people to understand. I think that that's one of the things about DePIN that I think is most exciting, is that these are real businesses being built, and they do make sense to the average person. So I think if you can bring in non-crypto people, and we can kind of get out of our little crypto bubble, if you will, where we're a little bit too complex with things, and just make it simple, I think we can attract a lot of people into the space. Because I think globally, what are we, like 7% adoption? So you increase your user base like 15x by making it simple, So that's really been my takeaway there. And I think, to what Graham was saying, using different dexes and downloading different applications and just overcomplicating stuff, I think we get in our own way sometimes.
Yeah, Bradley, I want to add to what you just said. So, getting new people to crypto. There is another type of degen people that we've not even been in contact with. We live in two different universes from them, but they too are degens. They live in dungeons, and they do weird things, and they degen on other stuff. And it's the stuff behind me. There's this community called Maker Community. So they have 3D printers, they have like screwdrivers at their hand. They're constantly like doing physical things in their garages. One cool synergy that the crypto industry has with that group specifically is catching the next wave. If we can degen out with the 3D people, we finally find some physicality. We step outside the realm of ownership and all these abstract ideas. It becomes physical and visible, right? And then we can do better robots than Elon Musk's Optimus. We can do better robots than everyone. So that's the most exciting thing, like trying to take a step back and then look forward, what's in front of us, as opposed to, I wanna just fuck with Google by building next thing.
Kevin, and to Bradley before that, and to speak to Adam's original question, the thing that people have missed all the time is that they've tried to onboard people directly into a utility that is alien to them. Like, it's in the weeds when you're talking about data points and spatial this and all the different vectors that you're gathered on every day. So just down there in the private chat for the backstage people, I've said the onboarding mechanism is not direct to the brokering. The onboarding is via the applications that are built upon the foundational models that are not ChatGPT or Anthropic or any of the other big boys. What they are is simplified versions that are autonomous, preserve agency and sovereignty, and allow the deployment using everything that we've just said about Web3, not some Web2 off-chain set of oracles making every blockchain a bino, right? And then by participating in those, and in particular, I'll speak about the medical, because we're just about to announce a multi-million-dollar contract with in the DeSci space with a very specialist set of medical practitioners. Now, they will have, in 12 months, 8 separate strands. That's the nomenclature. We changed the nomenclature with our ecosystems. Apps and apps are no longer apps and apps. They're strands. And we don't call data, we call them lumens. People will say that's a marketing thing, but we have a very good story about what that means. However, you don't onboard them by going direct into, hey man, you've got 1,000 data points and we want to take them, this, that, the other. They use a system because they have a serious ailment or they want pre or post patient care. And in the process of doing that, they have the option through the data that they submit in order to converse willingly with the wellness or diagnostic app, whether it's urology or oncology or obstetrics or pediatrician. They onboard themselves through the sensory device, in this case, the demonstrable use case being the cell phone, by onboarding their sensory device to the data point acquisition. And it's that they don't need to go onto the DEX or the wallet or this or the that or the other, but they opt in and then they get a check. They don't get crypto or they get a transfer, I should say, to their DeFi or to their ordinary bank account. And they don't have to know anything. This is the thing that all of us down here in the engineering world, who are also business people and also PR and marketing, have known, but which the people who dominate the space talk about. They talk about the tech. But my mom and pop don't want to know about the tech. They want to get an excellent service off their doctor. And if there happens to be an opt-in mechanism that also allows them to earn enough money not to have to pay the doctor, because they have been very clearly given the information that will be sold to third parties with their permission, which is completely protected and at any time can be observed by them, removed by them, and discovered by them, as opposed to the opaque stores and data centers that big tech has right now. Then we get, and in the public's mind's eye, just like we have now with LLMs, an awareness of the fact that data does matter, and it's not just some stuff that exists up there in the ether that Google and Facebook and all these dudes.
Very right. Data does matter. Thank you, GP. That's a great point. If you're out there, I'd like you to opt into one thing for me: the comments on the post for the show that you're watching right now. I need you to go down there and leave a comment and let us know what you thought of this conversation up till now. And are you currently participating in anything DePIN? Are you giving up your driving data? Are you giving up your health data? Are you making revenue somehow off of one of these things in your home? Leave a comment below and let us know. And I'd like to go through with everybody else and see what you leave in the comments. And also, if you're a project out there and you're watching the show, you can have a conversation just like this if you wanted to. The account that's live right now is open for DMs, and maybe you have something you want to talk about. Today it's XYO, and we're talking about DePIN, but maybe you have a GameFi project or you have some AI stuff that you're into. Send us a message. We would love to build a panel just like this. We'd love to have that conversation with you about the things that you're interested in. IBC has been doing this since 2017 with projects on every blockchain, so there's no reason you couldn't be the next guest with me and Buzz on a show just like this. But for today, it is XYO's day, and we're going to have a conversation with Marcus and the team here about what they've been doing. And you heard him mention earlier, if you've been here the whole time, I don't want to assume, but he mentioned they're one of, if not the oldest DePIN projects that's been around for a long time. But Marcus, we can't assume that everyone in here knows about XYO. So my first question has got to be, what is XYO? What are we talking about today?
Yeah. In a very simple way, we are basically a data company run on blockchain. We started out with a proof of location, I mentioned earlier, in IoT devices, and realized that it's difficult to onboard a lot of people. When we started more than 7 years ago, then there are only 2% of US people used crypto, and so our addressable market was just so tiny. It was only crypto nerds like the people here on this X space. And we realized that to get to a bigger market, right, we need to offer more, and so we have mobile apps and different ways to get users into our ecosystem. Now we have more than 10 million nodes there, which collect and validate and verify data. And of those, 80% of them are non-crypto users when they start out. So we really managed to connect to everyone. Like Bradley mentioned, HiveMapper before. I think they did a great job, to with Uber drivers and so on. And maybe the same. You have truck drivers, Grab drivers, and so on. Also, and a lot of other community groups which are part of our ecosystem. And I think that's very essential. And then over the last 7 years, we were this middle layer connecting to all the blockchains, and we realized nobody builds a very data-centric blockchain, and we didn't want to build one for the last 7 years, but we built all this tech. So we decided, okay, now we're gonna do it. Data is more and more important, especially in the AI age, and we are launching a new blockchain, the XYO Layer 1 blockchain, and it's going to launch this month, still into mainnet. It's in testnet right now, and with it, there's a new token called XL1, which is for the gas and the transactions and the internal parts of the XYO Layer 1, and then the XYO token stays external for our DePIN rewards and ecosystem staking and governance. And if you want to be running some XL1 in the beginning, the emissions are higher, stake some XYO in the XYO Layer 1 blockchain and get some XL1. And it's all basically bringing data together in really cool blockchain way. So it's for AI and gaming, RWAs, DePINs, and so on.
So I want to drill into that dual token system just a little bit further. So XYO is the DePIN rewards, and then XL1 is the gas token for the blockchain. Did I get that correctly?
That's right. Yeah.
Which industries do you expect that are going to fully embrace the model of using your guys' layer one?
Yeah, it's very data-centric industries. So right now, most layer ones, as you know, it's very costly to store data, for example, right? If you look at Solana or Ethereum, they're really good for transaction finality, immutability, and those kinds of things, right? But if you think about data, they are difficult. And so it's about not only storing your data, but getting certainty around data, proof that, the data was created on a certain DePIN device, for example, and then was stored there. Then you can tokenize that data and sell it to someone. Or you can have an AI, for example, connecting with our DePIN networks and others and say, okay, I'm lacking some data to give the best answer, find me that data, for example, real time, as Kevin mentioned before. Or you can say, okay, give the AI the feedback that the AI hallucinates, right? And then human agents, so not only agentic, but the human agentic version of that, or the cross of that, they are then collecting that data for the AI to be able to give that feedback. So we have a bunch of partners which want to onboard with us. We're going to start with our own DePIN network. We generate so much data. and then, we'll have, other partners on board afterwards. And to the tokens themselves, so, it's the XYO token is a huge success. It's listed on Coinbase and many other exchanges, and obviously we are not ever going to give it up. It's DePIN is so rewarding and lucrative. I was at a conference in Australia last year, for example. Someone sat in the first row, and as I came off the stage, the person hugged me and thanked me, invited me for lunch. It was a truck driver who was able to retire because he earned so much money with our coin up in our ecosystem that he was able to retire and then put money even in a friend's business as an investment. And we have all these stories of someone paid off their mortgage, someone with a 20-year delayed honeymoon, or fixed their car. It's like all these stories, right? You have real impact with DePIN when you go through a few cycles, and then you cash out at the right time. Like you allow people to have assets where a lot of people just are labor, right, and they earn and live paycheck to paycheck. Suddenly with DePIN you have an asset which has earns your assets and the return. And so the XYO token is going to be fundamental for that and for staking in the XYO layer one. And so we think a lot of the tokens will be started to be locked up. And then the XL1 token is internal, as I mentioned, gas transactions, dApps, and so on. And that will be burned with every transaction on the layer one. So we have a really great dynamic we build where it's like yin and yang. Basically, one is dependent on the other.
Those are some really uplifting stories to hear. I'm sure that felt good getting off stage and having that experience. Yeah. You guys are going to be staking the XYO token on the layer one, and holders are earning XL1. Is this meant to reduce the circulating supply of XYO with this lockup? And what is that going to do for the network's reliability and the infrastructure?
Yeah. We think it's going to massively reduce the XYO supply. And whatever that means, you have to read between the lines. And obviously, if you use value to stake a network, it provides security to that network, right? Because those XYO tokens and the earned XL1 is subject to slashing, and so it will provide security to the XYO layer one and the data which is behind it.
So you've mentioned that you guys are basically the original DePIN project, and also have over 10 million nodes that you now have live, which is very impressive. So congratulations on that. How do you see your first mover advantage and the scale that you guys have been able to accomplish thus far, shaping the broader DePIN sector?
Yeah, I think we speak with a lot of DePINs, and we are investing in some of them. We have an ecosystem fund and invested in a lot of DePINs, and we are advising. And we want the $3.5 trillion forecast from the World Economic Forum. We want that to be real. And so we want to help push this on as much as we can.
So then you guys have XY Labs, which is the company that's behind XYO, and you have a form of tokenized liquidity with what's called XYLB. And we understand that makes you one of the very first companies with this option available. How does the layer one expand on that? And what is XYO's role in bringing those two things together, the real world asset and the on-chain ecosystem?
Yeah. So there's two organizations. Basically, there's the XYO Foundation and XY Labs for profit companies. And XY Labs was the first US crypto company which was qualified by the US SEC to do something called a Regulation A offering, allowing us to sell our shares to non-accredited investors. And then subsequently, we thought it's not fair for those shareholders not to have liquidity while the XYO token holders have liquidity since 2018. And so we tried to find a way to tokenize the stock, and it took years because the SEC rails weren't quite ready for that. But then in 2022, we tokenized the shares in that company as well and listed them, and they're traded on the Teaser or alternative trading system, or Teaser ATS, which is available in more than 50 countries. And so we have the tokenized shares, which are basically part of the equity. And because of that, we have audited financials and annual and semi-annual filings. We can prove that we really had $9 million in revenue last year. and DePIN is real kind of thing. I think it's this revolution. In crypto, 2017, right, in the ICO boom, so many projects built and had so many aspirations, but then as the market dropped in 2018 and 2019, that basically most of them went out of business because they didn't build anything real. Right? They lived off the token reserve and the token value. And DePIN is just so different. And you build real business models with that, while you also have a token and build tokenomics and the token economy. And so it all comes together in a way. And then XY Labs, of course, is a digital asset treasury company as well. It owns the XYO and XL1 token in a certain way, and so who invests in the XY Labs or XYLB stock, owns part of the treasury as well.
I appreciate that, and it wouldn't be a proper AMA segment if we didn't ask the when questions. So in terms of the roadmap and vision for the project moving forward, you've had milestones like the public beta launch, recent major exchange listings. What do you see as maybe the next big step for XYO, not just in terms of ecosystem adoption, but from the tech side as well?
Yeah, mainnet is going to launch this month. It's the plan. And then the XL1 token shall launch as well. And there's a few secrets around there. And then we have a lot of amazing features which you now can read about in our new XYO Layer 1 white paper, which came out today. If you don't want to read the whole white paper with so many pages, I recommend to just putting into your AI and get a good summary. And maybe with the most important points. It's sometimes hard to read white papers, but we have a crazy amount of innovation, and we're going to roll that out all in the next few months. So, for example, our layer 1 of the data is way more efficient and then gives you something which makes blockchain less bulky, for example, and very, very usable for data.
So then for everybody that's been here at the show, let's direct them to a couple of places. It's xyo.network for the website, xyo.network. And then the X account is official XYO, no underscores or anything. For those two places, if anybody was going to the website right now or looking at the X account, would you direct them anywhere as the post that you would want them to look at up there, or anything on the website you want to highlight, Marcus?
No, go there, start following us, and once you're part of our ecosystem, I'm sure you get excited. Maybe download the Coin app as well if you want to earn some tokens. We feel that once you have 1 or 2 XYO, you become an interested party, and you want us to succeed, and you follow us more. So we love that, of course.
Definitely appreciate you being here. Like I said earlier in some of the pre-show stuff, XYO has been around a long time. Been fortunate to have a conversation with you before, and I think things are going in the right direction for you guys. But I appreciate that you took the time to be here on Mario's show. We always try to bring the audience something educational, something a little informative and entertaining, and I think we have done that today because DePIN and DeSci are underrepresented, in my opinion. I'm Pulse Digital, but I can say that. I think you guys probably feel the same way. So maybe there's going to be more conversations, and the best way to be a part of those conversations is by following everybody that's currently here on our panel. Some of these people are with XYO, but some of them host their own shows and they go on other panels like Graham and Adam. You can find them in other places too. Bradley does this. You can get their great content. We appreciate them coming here as part of our panel, and we encourage you to follow them. It's our way of saying thanks. So thanks to you guys for pulling up and being here as always. And always the team at IBC, which is 200 people deep. It's not just me and Buzz. They let us have the fun, but they set this all up. Thank you to them for putting us out here with XYO today to have this great opportunity. And thank you to Buzz for co-hosting with me today. Always enjoy your time up here, man. You want to close this one out?
Yeah, I appreciate everyone for joining. It's amazing to have a full panel here of just everyone just titans in their own domain, especially within DePIN and DeSci. So appreciate everyone for joining. Again, another shout out to follow all these great folks up here who are taking the time out of their day. And with that, everyone have a great Wednesday, start of September. Let's get some green candles. So thanks everyone for joining, and thanks XYO for bringing the discussion together. Take care.
Thanks for the energy, guys. This was awesome.
Thank you all. Yes.